The strongest person in the room is not always the one who shows their power. Sometimes, it is the one who has the discipline to stay calm when everyone else expects them to break. Maya Richardson never forgot those words, because they represented everything she had spent years building. On a quiet morning at Washington Dulles International Airport, she walked through the crowded terminal carrying a small travel bag and a black sports bag over her shoulder. To everyone around her, she looked like any other young traveler preparing for a flight. Nobody noticed the years of training hidden behind her calm expression. Nobody knew the countless hours she had spent learning patience, focus, and self-control. Maya was 24 years old, a recent graduate who had dedicated much of her life to personal growth. While many people trained only their bodies, Maya had trained her mind even more. She understood that true strength was not about proving what she could do. It was about knowing when not to show it. That morning, she was traveling to attend a national martial arts event where she planned to continue developing her skills and meet others who shared her passion for discipline. She moved through the airport quietly, observing the familiar rhythm of travelers rushing toward their gates, families checking their boarding passes, and announcements echoing across the terminal. It was an ordinary moment, but ordinary moments can change quickly. Across the terminal, Officer Daniel Brooks was beginning his shift. After years working in airport security, he had learned to pay attention to details. He watched people, noticed unusual situations, and made quick decisions. He believed he was doing his job by protecting the airport environment. But sometimes, a quick decision could be influenced by incomplete information. Sometimes, the first thing someone sees is only a small piece of a much larger story. When Daniel noticed Maya, he did not know the journey that had brought her there. He did not know about her years of training, her dedication, or the discipline she carried every day. He only saw a young woman with a sports bag in a busy airport. Maya noticed the attention but remained calm. She had learned through years of martial arts that emotions could cloud judgment. The first reaction was not always the best reaction. The strongest response was often patience. Imagine standing in a crowded airport while strangers form opinions about you without knowing your story. Imagine having the ability to prove them wrong instantly, but choosing instead to remain composed. That was the kind of strength Maya carried. She was not looking for attention. She was not trying to challenge anyone. She simply wanted to continue her journey. But before she reached her gate, a misunderstanding began to unfold. A moment that seemed small at first would soon reveal something much bigger about assumptions, responsibility, and the power of staying in control. Because sometimes, the person everyone underestimates is the person who has spent years preparing for the moment when everything changes. The airport continued moving at its usual pace, with travelers checking their phones, families gathering near departure gates, and announcements filling the wide terminal space. But for Maya Richardson, the ordinary morning was beginning to feel different. She had always believed that the most important moments in life were not defined by what happened, but by how a person chose to respond. Years of martial arts training had taught her that patience was not weakness. It was control. As she walked toward her gate, Maya noticed Officer Daniel Brooks approaching. His expression was focused, and his attention was directed toward the situation around her. Daniel had spent years working in airport security, and he believed that awareness was one of the most important parts of his responsibility. Every day, he made decisions based on what he observed. However, even experienced people could sometimes misunderstand a situation when they only saw one part of the story. Daniel looked at Maya's sports bag and her travel documents, trying to understand the circumstances. To him, it appeared to be a situation that needed clarification. To Maya, it was another moment where she had a choice. She could react emotionally, or she could remain the person she had trained herself to become. She chose patience. She answered questions calmly and cooperated because she knew that staying composed was more powerful than allowing frustration to control the moment. Around them, some travelers began noticing the interaction. A few people looked over with curiosity, wondering what was happening. Maya felt the attention, but she did not let it change her behavior. She understood that people often make decisions based on what they see in a single moment. They rarely know the experiences, challenges, and lessons that shaped someone's character. Daniel continued trying to understand the situation, but he did not yet know the full story behind the young woman standing in front of him. He did not know that Maya had spent years training her body and mind to remain calm under pressure. He did not know that she had learned from instructors who taught that discipline mattered more than recognition. He only saw what was visible. Maya knew that this was something many people experienced in different ways. Sometimes, a person could be judged before they had the chance to explain who they really were. Sometimes, the world noticed appearances before it noticed character. But Maya also knew that truth did not need anger to be revealed. It only needed time. As the conversation continued, a quiet tension filled the space between them. Not because Maya was afraid, but because she understood that moments like this could reveal more than just facts. They could reveal how people handled uncertainty. Daniel believed he was simply doing his job. Maya believed she was simply continuing her journey. Neither of them realized that this brief encounter inside the airport would soon become a powerful lesson about assumptions, discipline, and the difference between having power and understanding how to use it. Because the greatest test of strength is not what someone can do when challenged. It is how they choose to respond when everyone is watching. The airport terminal remained busy, but for Maya Richardson, the atmosphere around her had changed. The sounds of rolling luggage, distant announcements, and conversations from passing travelers seemed to fade into the background as she focused on the moment in front of her. She had learned through years of martial arts training that pressure revealed character. Anyone could appear calm when life was simple. The real challenge came when a person felt misunderstood and still chose patience. Maya stood quietly, answering questions and maintaining the same respectful attitude she had shown from the beginning. She knew that frustration could make a difficult moment worse. Her training had never been only about physical ability. It had been about discipline, awareness, and understanding her own emotions. Across from her, Officer Daniel Brooks continued trying to make sense of the situation. He believed he was protecting the airport and following his responsibilities. He had handled countless interactions during his career, and he trusted his ability to recognize problems quickly. But this time, he was facing something different. He was looking at a person whose story could not be understood from a few simple details. Daniel saw a young woman with a travel bag. He did not yet see the years of dedication behind her calm expression. He did not see the early mornings, the difficult training sessions, or the lessons that taught Maya how to remain composed under pressure. He only saw the surface. Maya understood that this was a moment where many people would react emotionally. She understood why. Being judged without being understood was something many people experienced in different ways throughout their lives. But she also believed that dignity was shown most clearly during difficult moments. Anyone could demand respect. True strength came from showing it first. As more travelers noticed the interaction, the atmosphere became more noticeable. People looked over, trying to understand what was happening. Some formed opinions based on what they could see, while others simply watched quietly. Maya remained focused. She did not need to convince every person around her. She knew that the truth did not become stronger because people immediately believed it. The truth remained the truth even before others recognized it. Daniel continued asking questions, still unaware that the person in front of him had spent years preparing herself for moments exactly like this. Not because she expected conflict, but because life often presented unexpected challenges. Her training taught her that control was more valuable than reaction. That lesson extended far beyond martial arts. It applied to every conversation, every disagreement, and every moment when emotions could take over. The difference between losing control and maintaining control could change the entire direction of an event. As the encounter continued, neither Maya nor Daniel realized that the most important part of the situation was not what people thought they saw. It was what would be revealed when the complete story finally came to light. Because sometimes the person who appears powerless is actually the person who has spent years building the greatest strength of all. The ability to remain calm when the world expects a reaction. The moment inside the airport continued, but something important was beginning to change. It was not a change that could be seen immediately. It was a shift in understanding, a quiet realization that the person standing in front of Officer Daniel Brooks was not someone who could be defined by a quick impression. Maya Richardson remained calm, even as more attention gathered around the situation. She understood that people often revealed their true character during moments when they felt challenged. Her martial arts training had never been about showing others what she could do. It had always been about learning what she could control. Her breathing, her emotions, and her choices were the things she focused on most. Daniel continued reviewing the information available to him, still believing he was simply handling a routine airport matter. He had no idea that the young woman in front of him represented years of discipline and dedication. He did not know that Maya had trained under instructors who taught that the strongest person was not the one who reacted the fastest, but the one who understood the situation before responding. Around them, travelers moved through the terminal, unaware that a powerful lesson about perception was unfolding in front of them. Some people noticed only what appeared obvious. They saw a young black woman with a sports bag and an officer asking questions. They did not see the years of preparation, the personal sacrifices, or the quiet confidence that Maya carried with her. But Maya knew that assumptions were often created when people only saw a single moment of someone's life. She had experienced situations where others misunderstood her before knowing her story. Instead of allowing those moments to define her, she used them as reminders of why patience mattered. Daniel began noticing something unusual. Maya was not behaving the way he expected. She was not trying to create an argument or draw attention to herself. She was simply communicating clearly and maintaining respect. That made him pause. The situation did not match the simple explanation he had formed in his mind. There was more to discover. The more Daniel observed, the more he realized that calmness was not a sign of weakness. In fact, it required incredible confidence to remain composed when surrounded by uncertainty. Maya's silence was not surrender. It was self-control. Her patience was not fear. It was discipline. The difference was something Daniel had not considered before. As the minutes passed, the situation began moving toward a turning point. The information available was starting to create a different picture. The young woman who had seemed like just another traveler was becoming someone much more complex in the eyes of those watching. Nobody knew yet about the full journey behind Maya Richardson. Nobody knew about the training, the commitment, or the values that shaped her every decision. But soon, the truth would begin to change the way everyone viewed the encounter. Because sometimes the greatest revelation is not discovering what someone can do. It is discovering the strength they showed by choosing restraint when they had every reason to react. The airport terminal remained filled with movement, but the attention around Maya Richardson had changed. What began as a simple misunderstanding was slowly becoming a moment where people were forced to look beyond what they first believed. Maya stood calmly, knowing that every second revealed something about the choices people made under pressure. She had spent years learning that control was not only a skill used in training halls. It was a way of thinking that guided every part of life. Her instructors had always reminded her that the greatest achievement was not mastering techniques. It was mastering herself. Daniel Brooks continued reviewing the situation, but his perspective was beginning to shift. At first, he believed he understood what was happening. Now, he recognized that there were details he had not considered. Maya's behavior did not match the assumptions that had formed in his mind. She was patient, respectful, and completely composed. She was not trying to create conflict. She was trying to communicate. That difference started making him question his first impression. Maya noticed the change in the atmosphere, but she did not let it affect her. She had learned that people often reveal more about themselves when they feel uncertain. Some people react with anger. Some people become defensive. But those reactions rarely solve problems. Maya chose a different path. She chose to remain steady. Her calm attitude was not accidental. It was the result of years of dedication. When she was younger, Maya began training because she wanted to challenge herself. Over time, martial arts became more than physical exercise. It became a lesson in patience, responsibility, and awareness. She learned that strength without discipline could create problems, but strength guided by wisdom could create solutions. Nobody in the airport knew that story yet. They only saw the moment in front of them. They did not see the early mornings, the difficult practices, or the personal growth that shaped Maya into the person she had become. That was the hidden part of her journey. The world often noticed results but rarely saw the effort behind them. Daniel started paying closer attention. He began noticing that Maya was not someone trying to prove herself. In fact, she seemed determined not to make the situation bigger than it needed to be. That realization stayed with him. The person he expected to be difficult was actually the person showing the most patience. As the conversation continued, more questions began to appear. Who was Maya Richardson? Why did she carry herself with such confidence? What had prepared her to remain calm in a moment when many people would have reacted differently? The answers were still hidden, but the truth was getting closer. Maya knew that eventually people would learn more about her. However, she also knew that her identity was not the most important part of the lesson. Her achievements, her training, and her experience were only pieces of her story. The most important part was the choice she made in that moment. She chose dignity over anger. She chose patience over reaction. And soon, everyone around her would discover that the quiet traveler they had underestimated was someone who had spent years preparing for moments exactly like this. The truth about Maya Richardson was beginning to move closer to the surface, but the most important discovery was not about her abilities. It was about the values that had guided her long before anyone knew her story. Inside the airport terminal, the situation continued to develop while Maya remained exactly the same person she had been from the beginning. She was calm, respectful, and focused. She did not change because more people were watching. She did not change because she wanted others to understand her. Her actions came from a deeper place, built through years of discipline and personal growth. Daniel Brooks noticed that something about the situation was different. The more he observed Maya, the more he realized that he had only seen a small part of the picture. He had noticed the sports bag, the travel details, and the circumstances around her. But he had not seen the story behind those things. He had not seen the commitment that shaped her character. He had not seen the lessons that taught her to remain composed when emotions could easily take control. Maya understood that this was not just about one conversation in an airport. Moments like this happened in everyday life. People often made decisions based on limited information. They saw a person's appearance, their belongings, or their situation, and they created a story. Before knowing the truth, Maya had learned that a person's first impression was rarely the complete picture. Her martial arts training taught her to observe before reacting. It taught her that awareness was more powerful than assumptions. It taught her that the strongest response was sometimes the quietest one. As Daniel continued processing the situation, he began to see the difference between confidence and confrontation. Maya was confident, but she was not trying to challenge anyone. She was strong, but she was not trying to prove anything. Her discipline allowed her to remain respectful even when she felt misunderstood. That was something Daniel could not ignore. Around them, travelers continued moving through the terminal, unaware that an important lesson was unfolding. They saw a conversation between an officer and a young woman, but they did not know the deeper meaning behind it. They did not know that Maya had spent years preparing herself for moments where patience mattered more than reaction. Detective Lauren Mitchell would later review the details of the encounter, but at that moment, the most important information was still hidden. The story behind Maya Richardson had not yet been fully revealed. The people around her did not know that she was more than just a traveler with a sports bag. They did not know about the competitions, the training, and the dedication that shaped her life. But the truth had a way of appearing when the right questions were asked. Maya never believed that her skills made her better than anyone else. She believed they gave her a greater responsibility to remain balanced and thoughtful. That belief separated her from people who used strength to gain attention. Maya carried strength quietly, and soon, everyone would understand that the greatest thing she carried through that airport was not her training. It was her character. The airport terminal had returned to its normal rhythm, but the meaning of what happened inside that space was becoming clearer with every passing moment. Maya Richardson remained focused on her journey, unaware that the encounter had created questions that would soon require deeper answers. She had never, wanted attention. She had never trained for recognition. Her goal had always been simple: become a better version of herself through discipline, patience, and commitment. But sometimes, the moments people try to avoid become the moments that reveal the most important parts of who they are. Officer Daniel Brooks continued thinking about the interaction long after it happened. Something about Maya's behavior stayed with him. He had met many people during his years working at the airport, and every situation taught him something different. But this one felt unusual because the person in front of him had responded in a way he did not expect. She had shown patience when others might have shown frustration. She had shown respect when others might have demanded it. That difference made him question the assumptions he had made at the beginning. Daniel understood that his role required awareness, but he also began to understand that awareness was not only about noticing what was visible. It was about recognizing what could not be seen immediately. Meanwhile, Maya continued preparing for her upcoming martial arts event. To her, the training was never about becoming someone others feared. It was about becoming someone who could remain balanced in difficult situations. Her instructors had always emphasized that discipline was measured by decisions, not by abilities. Anyone could act when emotions were high. The real challenge was choosing the right response when emotions tried to take control. As the details of the airport encounter were reviewed, Detective Lauren Mitchell became involved. Lauren had experience examining situations where small moments revealed larger lessons. She approached the review carefully, understanding that every person involved had their own perspective. She did not want to make conclusions before understanding the complete story. She wanted facts, context, and honesty. When Lauren began looking into the details, she noticed something important. The situation was not only about what happened in the terminal. It was about how quickly people could create assumptions when they did not have all the information. Maya's background started to become clearer. The young woman who appeared to be an ordinary traveler had spent years developing skills that went far beyond physical training. She had built confidence through consistency. She had built patience through challenges. She had built character through discipline. The discovery changed the way people viewed the encounter. But Maya remained the same person she had been from the beginning. She did not believe her training made her superior. She believed it gave her a responsibility to remain thoughtful and respectful. That was the lesson Daniel and Lauren began to understand. True strength was not about proving that someone could overcome a difficult moment. True strength was about showing wisdom before that moment ever became something bigger. And as the full story of Maya Richardson continued to unfold, everyone involved began to realize that the most powerful part of her journey was not the skill she had developed. It was the control she had chosen to show. The story of Maya Richardson continued to reveal something far more meaningful than a single moment inside an airport. As Detective Lauren Mitchell reviewed the details, she began to understand that the situation was not simply about one conversation between a traveler and an officer. It was about how quickly people could create conclusions when they only saw a small part of someone's life. Maya had always known this truth. Throughout her years of martial arts training, she had learned that appearances could be misleading. A person's confidence, struggles, discipline, and experiences were often hidden beneath the surface. The world usually noticed the final result, but rarely saw the journey that created it. Lauren carefully examined every detail of the encounter. She listened to the perspectives of everyone involved and looked for a complete understanding of what happened. She knew that fairness required patience. Rushing to judgment would only repeat the same mistake that created confusion in the first place. The more she learned about Maya, the more she realized that the young woman's greatest achievement was not her ability to perform martial arts techniques. It was her ability to remain calm when she had every reason to feel frustrated. Daniel Brooks also began reflecting on the situation in a different way. He thought about how easily a person could misunderstand someone when they only focused on what was immediately visible. He thought about Maya standing in the airport with her travel bag, appearing like any other passenger. He realized that he had never considered the story behind that moment. He had not seen the dedication, the discipline, or the years of personal growth that shaped her. Maya's training had prepared her for challenges, but not because she expected conflict everywhere she went. It prepared her because life often created unexpected situations where emotions could become overwhelming. Her instructors taught her that control was a decision made repeatedly, especially when circumstances were difficult. Maya eventually shared more about her background. She explained that martial arts had changed the way she viewed the world. It taught her patience, respect, and responsibility. The goal was never to prove that she was stronger than someone else. The goal was to understand herself better and become someone who could handle difficult moments with wisdom. Those words stayed with everyone who heard them. They revealed that the true lesson was not about a physical skill. It was about emotional strength. It was about the ability to choose dignity when others expected a reaction. The encounter that began with uncertainty became a reminder that every person carries a story that others may never see. Daniel learned that responsibility required more than making decisions. It required understanding the people affected by those decisions. Lauren learned that careful review could reveal lessons far beyond the original situation. And Maya continued forward, knowing that her identity was not defined by one moment. She was not defined by how others viewed her before knowing the truth. She was defined by the values she carried every day. Because the greatest form of strength is not showing the world what you can do. It is showing the world who you choose to be when the moment demands it. The story of Maya Richardson did not end when the truth became. No. In many ways, that was only the beginning of a larger understanding. The moment inside the airport became a reminder that people are often carrying stories that cannot be seen from the outside. A person may walk through a crowded terminal, sit beside someone on a flight, or pass through a public place, and nobody around them may know the experiences that shaped who they are. Maya had always understood that. Her journey had never been about proving that she was better than anyone else. It had been about becoming better than she was yesterday. After the encounter, Maya continued preparing for her martial arts event, returning to the same routine that had guided her for years. Training, discipline, and self-reflection remained part of her daily life. She did not allow the attention surrounding the situation to change her. She knew that recognition could disappear quickly, but character was built through the choices a person made when nobody was watching. Officer Daniel Brooks also carried the lesson forward. He thought about the airport, the conversation, and the assumptions that existed before the full story was known. He realized that responsibility was not only about protecting a place or following procedures. It was about understanding the people connected to every decision. A person could never be fully understood through one observation, one moment, or one assumption. Daniel began approaching his role with a deeper awareness. He understood that patience was not something that slowed down his work. It was something that made his decisions stronger. Detective Lauren Mitchell continued using the experience as a reminder of the importance of careful judgment. She knew that every situation contained details that were not immediately visible. The review showed that meaningful improvement came from honesty, reflection, and the willingness to learn. It was not about creating enemies. It was about creating better understanding. Maya never considered herself a symbol or a lesson. She simply lived by the principles that had guided her for years. She believed that strength was not measured by how much power someone could display. It was measured by how much control they had over their own actions. Her martial arts training gave her skills, but her values gave those skills purpose. The airport encounter became a story that many people remembered because it challenged a common mistake. People often judge what they see before discovering what they do not see. They notice appearances before experiences. They notice situations before stories. But every person has a journey hidden behind the surface. Maya's journey showed that true confidence does not need to announce itself. True strength does not need approval from others. It exists quietly in the decisions a person makes every day. Daniel learned that authority becomes meaningful when it is guided by understanding. Lauren learned that truth becomes clearer when people take the time to look deeper. And Maya continued forward, carrying the same calm determination she had carried from the beginning. Because in the end, the most powerful lesson was not about a moment at an airport. It was about the choice every person has when facing uncertainty. They can judge quickly or they can choose to understand. They can focus only on what appears in front of them, or they can search for the complete story. And sometimes, the person the world underestimates is the person who quietly shows everyone what real strength truly means.